evening.
Oh, Bernie.
Everyone at 7:03 to the West Hartford Clean Energy Commission meeting. And to share our agenda for this evening. I think I will do that anyway. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so 7:03, I'm calling this meeting to order. We don't have James Capella, who is our secretary, so I'd ask the other commissioners to keep as good a notes as you can so we can compile the minutes after this meeting. So roll call the commissioners. Joe Campanella, you're here. Please say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Max Dubuisson, you're here.
Yes, hello.
Thank you. And Catherine will be joining us late. Also on the call, we have Weston Williams. He's on the phone. We have Ted Lowenthal. He's on. John Phillips is a guest speaker. Stephen Sachs, hopefully soon to be a commissioner. Catherine Bruns. Who did I leave out? David Melville is here, so we really have a...
Hi. Hi there.
Okay. Okay, commissioners, could I get a motion to approve the minutes from March 24th?
Here. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Great, thank you, guys. Okay, those minutes are approved.
Aye.
So one of the it's a unique experience for me that Chris Nelson has been part of this commission since I've been attending it, even before I became a member of the task force, which became a commission. And he announced after the last meeting he is going to resign, and I just want to say a few words about him because he's done an amazing amount of work, and hopefully the town will recognize his contribution. He was one of the founding fathers of this task force, so he's been in the commission, in the task force since 2005. And by my calculation, that means he has spent over 1/4 of his life serving the town of West Hartford on energy-related matters. He's been the co-chair of this commission along with Catherine for as long as I've been associated with it. Even though he is leaving, he is still active. He works for DEEP, Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, in the solid waste management area, and he often experiments and works with West Hartford to get a sense of what life is like on the ground. We have Mr. Phillips in the agenda to tell us what is going on currently. Even though Chris is not here this evening, I want to just point out publicly that even though he may not officially be a commissioner anymore, doesn't mean we won't be bugging him to take advantage of his knowledge and expertise on issues. He's too knowledgeable to use. Any of you who are familiar with The Godfather can maybe remember Al Pacino. He had the famous line, "Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in." We intend to follow The Godfather's example and pull him back in as needed. If Catherine was here, she would note that she and Chris both graduated from Yale School of Forestry, and they sort of lost touch after they graduated, and it wasn't until they both served on the task force that they reconnected. So I would ask you to join me in thanking Chris in absentia for all his service, and we are hoping that on May 11th, if the town can wade through the budget thicket, and I think we all wish them Godspeed in that endeavor, that they will appoint a new commissioner. Mr. Sack, who was on attending as a citizen, hopefully will be brought into the ranks of commissioner at that point. Of course, we can make no guarantees because no one knows exactly where the budget work will end up.
Bernie, I'd also add to your comments about Chris. He is my neighbor and the one who encouraged me to attend these meetings in the first place many years ago. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Max. Yes, I think that's one of all of our roles is to connect this work with our fellow citizens and, in your case, neighbors. John Phillips, I know you are next on the agenda, but what I'd like to do is just start on some of the old business that we have until Catherine shows up from lacrosse practice, so she can be here to bedevil you with questions.
Feel free to take care of your business as appropriate.
All right, thank you. Just to let people know where we are on the energy plan, we have a draft. On I am a newbie to the political workings of West Hartford. And so we reached out to Benham Wendergrad and Matt Hart, and this is the feedback that we got. We think we will present our plan to the Public Works and Facilities Committee on May 27th. And from there, assuming we can get through that initial gate, we'll bring it to the Town Council on either the June 8th or June 22nd. I'm still not clear as to whether we'll be presenting or whether they will have read it and ask us questions, or exactly what the format will be in either of those two meetings. But I think we know who and we know when. Now we just have to figure out the how. A parallel effort that's going on is a couple meetings we've had a group of students presenting to us a climate emergency resolution, just to let people know where that stands. That group is meeting with the mayor and town manager tomorrow, I believe, to get their input, and so more to follow on that. I am just guessing, but it would be my expectation that the Public Works and Facilities Committee and the Town Council will consider both the Clean Energy Plan as well as the Climate Emergency Resolution in the same meetings. But again, I could be wrong on that. Any thoughts, questions, observations on those points?
Bernie, this is Chris Feely. Hi, everyone. Just start my video here. For those, I think I probably know or recognize most people, but I obviously not on the commission, but I have attended meetings pretty regularly, and I'm working with the Ready for 100 group. So in terms of the clean energy plan, I'm wondering if we will know, or if it will be advertised or notified ahead of time that there will be a public comment period. As some of you know, I've mentioned before, I haven't lived in West Hartford for very long, but I understand that there is for certain items that will be taken up by the town council, like the clean energy plan. There is a formal time for public comment. So I don't know if anyone knows about that, or if Catherine, maybe that Catherine will know about that, but I would hope we can get that determined in time to notify people and rally our supporters.
Christine, I can only answer you in general terms. I know it will be a public meeting. I know that just like the commission here, we're required to have our agenda publicly a day or more ahead of time, and I'm sure that they will. And as to how much we can comment and what that process is, I don't know. I don't know, John Phillips, you've been around the horn a number of times on this. Is that something that you would be familiar with, and when we're presenting something like a plan?
Yeah, when at the committee level, we always allow the public to speak. It's usually a little bit less formal. From what Ms. Feely is probably talking about is the more formal process of town council. If your plan's on the agenda for adoption, then you're allowed to speak about stuff on the agenda. So that would be your opportunity to speak publicly, endorsing, obviously, the council's, and trying to influence and endorse the plan when the council is hearing the plan for adoption. What I wouldn't know is whether they have to publicly accept it first and let there be a 30-day period so the public gets aware that it's out there, and then the public hearing happens 30 days later. That's what happens in zoning stuff. I don't know if that applies to plans of this nature going to the council, but rest assured there will be an opportunity for you to rally your supporters and speak publicly on the item when it makes the council's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's lucky for an unrelated reason that you're here. So I'm sure. So thank you for that insight. Just to continue on some of the old business, we had, and effort underway. We had Simsbury and Bloomfield working together on a public art and electric vehicle charger initiative where we're going to paint the EV charging stations. Unfortunately, I think Bloomfield was the sort of the anchor tenant on that project, and at this moment, for reasons that I don't fully understand, that this project is on hold. We already spoke about where we stand with the climate emergency resolution. They will be meeting with the town manager tomorrow and the mayor as well. And I know they'll have feedback to that group. And as soon as I learn anything, we'll get it out to everyone. On our agenda, we have a standing sort of reports from our commissioners on a variety of plan issues. Even though the plan has not been adopted, we are acting as if it is. And one of the most important aspects of our plan is to broaden our ability to engage with the public. I know that all of you here who are paying attention to this clean energy, as well as the people working on municipal waste, understand the importance of engaging with the public. I know, Joe Campanella, that you have reached out to Renee McCue seeking her help on how best for this commission to engage with the public. Do you have any feedback from her, or do you want to just tell us what you ask her about?
Well, I think just that you know, it'd be nice if I could sit down with her along with, you know, maybe another commissioner and just discuss with her how we might go about using, you know, her knowledge of the way that communication works, and as a way for us to reach out to the community. I haven't heard back from her, so I'm still waiting on that, and hopefully she can get back to me and we can discuss it a little bit more. I've asked the commissioners to think about issues that they would like to possibly use as pitches for exciting, you know, local news coverage. Somehow trying to get the Current or the Mirror or the Patch or West Hartford News to run articles. And so we need some ideas about what we might want to pitch to them. Obviously, we can talk about the history of the commission and what we've done for the town. But other things like how we're trying to reach out to businesses and West Hartford residences, how they can better make their homes and businesses more efficient and use renewable energy. I guess I'm just trying to better understand how we can get more exposure within the community.
Yeah, Joe, you make such an important point. We have 64,000 residents, and we might have a dozen, let's call us the 12 apostles on this phone call. So how do these 12 people connect with the 64,000 people? And Catherine and John Phillips, I know you face the same thing. I know that because every trash day I walk by recycle bins full of styrofoam and plastic film, and I know how much work your So maybe we could join forces when we get to that part of the discussion.
We
'Cause
certainly
it's
do.
just so,
Bernard, if I can, you know, I started with weha.com many years ago, and Ronnie Newton would just push articles out. I'd give her content, maybe even, you know, create some of the content, write most of it, and then she would add more of a reporter's writing, you know, style to it for her articles. She's probably a good resource to start with. And because I think weha.com touches a lot of residents. I personally think it's one of the most, probably the go-to news source that most local residents look to first for some kind of story. And then you can go from there when you have your discussions with Renee. Certainly, if you get into social media, you connect with mine. I've got over 1,500 followers on Twitter. So when I retweet something, I blast out several, you know, 100 people, over 1,000. And then obviously Instagram is another platform that both Catherine and I use regularly for information. I know Catherine's really taken hold of that with the information we try to push out on waste management. But like I said, so weha.com is probably a really great place to start getting in contact with Ronnie Newton.
John, thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
And in the agenda, we have a couple ideas, Joe, for initial outreaches to Ronnie Newton as well as the current. One would be Chris Nelson himself. I think we could probably, we should have a human interest story there. I think he's got a good story to tell. And I have a draft op-ed piece, I guess I'll call it, on the town council taking up our clean energy plan. So I've got that drafted, and I'll circulate that to all of you. So that's two ideas. And then as we go through the rest of the agenda, there are a couple things which I think also might rise to the level where it would be newsworthy to Ronnie Newton and others. Okay. We are making small headway on Sustainable West Hartford Facebook page. I think we've increased the number of that Google group perhaps by 20 or 30, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be. Next is the town clean energy webpage. I know Catherine would just love to have a volunteer. I guess let me ask on her behalf if we can have a volunteer to just scroll through all the pages and links that are on the clean energy website, the town website, and just help her verify that all the links work and that maybe just suss out the things that need to be updated. So I don't know if anybody will volunteer in this setting or not, but that's an open offer.
There we go. Knocking into the mute button. I'd be happy to help out with that. It seems like a pretty straightforward entree into helping out.
That's Weston that's speaking?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So it's Catherine. If you could just reach out to me and let me know kind of what you'd like me to try and do, I will be happy to help where I can.
Great. Weston, does Catherine have your email address?
I'm guessing she does not.
Okay.
Hold on.
We have a chat function on this? Yes, we do. Can you maybe put it in?
Yeah, I will put it on there right now.
Great. Oh, and I see that Max has a great request here. If you're not speaking, I know there's an echo, which if you can mute yourself, I know that cuts down on the echo sometimes. Let me share this again.
Hey, Bernie, while you're looking up that stuff, you know, one comment about the putting out some news release about the garbage pickup. I just I recommend that you talk some dollars and cents into this article for those that are not looking to really be sustainable, but just looking at dollars and cents when the town says, well, you're going to charge it for the bags and, you know, but we already pay for it in our taxes. I think if you show some dollars and cents of what we're paying for tipping fees now, what it's looking like going with the trash energy plant closing down, you know, that may help out with some people who is just a dollars and cents game with it.
I think that's an excellent point, and I think we'll bring that up again when John Phillips talk. I mean, people often think falsely that green and sustainable means not economically beneficial. In the case of waste management, nothing could be farther from the truth. I can recall the pay-as-you-throw. Knowing what I know about the future of tipping fees, we absolutely are headed for increasing costs unless we do something. So that's a really good point, Steve. One thing I would like to do now is just to I am on the hook along with Joe Campanella to introduce energy efficiency and heat pump campaign, energy education campaign, I should say. And so I've put this together. The group that I belong to, besides the West Hartford Clean Energy Commission, is PACE, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And I just want to talk a little bit about this is a proposal to all the commissioners. Just to give you a quick look into this program called Heat Smart. So slide 1, just to introduce what is Heat Smart. It's a community education and outreach campaign. Those of you who can remember Solarize, it's really Solarize based on a different technology, namely heat pumps. It is at its essence community marketing with municipal support. It's technical education. This is a key point here. It's vetted contracting and education partners. The municipality doesn't and never will endorse a particular contractor, but they will work with contractors and other partners like PACE for public outreach and education. So we're not endorsing a contractor as a contractor, we're embracing them as a partner in an education and outreach campaign. And that's a key point. This is a pro forma, so I have not reached out to anyone. That's because I want to bring this before this commission and get your feedback. But Heat Smart would be administered by PACE, which is my company, which, to be clear, I draw no salary and PACE makes no money off of these things, so it's purely altruistic, if you will. What we'd be, the main partners we'd be looking for would be a couple home energy solution partners. We can choose from any of the licensed partners in Connecticut. The 10 that I have listed here are those that have done the most of all the contractors out there. These are the ones that have done the most work. I think I reached out to a couple. I got a couple feedback. Some people know New England Smart Energy Group. I know CMC. I know Energy Efficiency Solutions. My thought would be to reach out to this group and see who would be willing to partner with us.
I know the guys at Aiello and Banham Weston very well.
You know, that's Steve. You know these guys?
Yep. I know Banham Weston very well. I know Aiello very well.
Great. And it would be that type. And so it's a tough decision. I think, to be honest, I think all of these contractors have more work right now than they can handle. So some of them might shy away from a campaign like this. But we'll reach out to them, and the folks on this call would be involved in winnowing down that selection, because we can't have 10 of them, but we can have a couple of them. We should have a couple of them. Likewise, heat pump contractors. These are, I have not reached out to anybody. This is just, if you look at just online for 1 second, you'll see these sorts of names appearing. So that's a whole piece of work there. It probably will take a month or two to figure out who would be a good partner on the heat pump side. Bear with me 1 second here. Just to give you an idea very quickly of this campaign. Thing one, and this takes an awful long time, we have to get this accepted by the town. I have had some discussion with the town council, that's SEL, not CIL, and given them a heads up that we might be working on something like this, and they said within certain parameters they can see their way clear, but that's far from an endorsement. We have to establish those partner relationships, so we have to figure out which HES contractor and which heat pump contractor we want to reach out to. I want to talk a little bit. I want to fold the low middle income campaign, which is, Joe, you and I are on that as well. I want to fold that into this campaign. We would have to create a marketing plan. One of the good things about working with PACE is we are grant funded, assuming I can get a renewal of the grant. So we would bring some amount of money to the marketing aspect of this. We'd have to identify those residents who can benefit from heat pump technology. Not everybody can. We're working on a website because we're doing this in other towns. So it's be an easy matter to stand up a website for West Hartford. We'd create an intake form. That intake form, it sounds kind of wonky, but its job would be to tell the residents what programs are offered. So it would be HES, talk a little bit about insulation and other measures, talk about the different heat pumps offerings. And then typically, since we're doing outreach and outreach is extraordinarily expensive, we typically put something else on there. It could be solar, it might be bioheat, it might even be something related to municipal solid waste. If I liken public outreach to a donkey with saddlebags. If the donkey with the saddlebags is going to go out in the community, we can put 3 or 4 things in those saddlebags. It's a shame to waste that donkey's trip without getting the maximum use out of him. So that would be a decision point that we'd have to work on if this campaign gets off the ground. Then it would be a 5-month campaign. Its job would be to connect residents to resources with a focus on education. I just want to flash this in front of you. We will not to go into it deeply tonight, but everywhere you look, there's concern with the equity of our programs, with energy poverty, with trying to redress wrongs, to trying to straighten things out. And the town where we have Heat Smart standing up right now is Brantford. And I guess I can't say enough good things about Brantford. I'm sure there's something wrong in that town, but so far I haven't hit it. I've just blatantly stolen this ad from them because a lot of what is on this ad was news to me. Basically, the table on the left is actually the federal eligibility level. So if, for example, in a particular dwelling, there are 3 people who collectively make less than $60,000, the HES audit itself is free. For those of us that make more than that, the HES audit now costs $50. So that's a bit of an incentive. And then things like insulation, heat pumps, air sealing, upgrades to other technologies are also highly subsidized for this group of people. So it makes a lot of sense for us on behalf of our West Hartford residents who fall into these income brackets to make sure that they know what is available to them. It's good for them. And from our standpoint of promoting clean energy and efficiency, it's good for us. So And I know I'm going too fast here. This is just to get the idea out here. So the next steps and decision points, we want to circle back with the town, make sure that, give them essentially the same pitch that I'm giving all of you, and make sure that get their take on it. It's just pointless for us to do a bunch of work and then have the town say, no, you can't go at it this way. Partner selection, you got to have good partners. You got to have partners who are into the education piece of this. There's plenty of great contractors out there who are just great contractors. They're not very interested in education. We have to sort of find of that universe of contractors, those people that are really going to help our residents by telling them what's out there. This is a job for me. I have to make sure that PACE has the funding for this grant, and then we would have to assemble a town volunteer team. So that's where we are with that particular piece of old business, which is the energy efficiency, heat pump, and low middle income outreach. And I'll continue to work on that. Joe, I know I can always count on you and anybody else that wants to get on board with this. By all means, let me know.
Happy to help,
Any
Ernie.
thoughts on that before we go forward? Okay. And has Catherine Divinity appeared? John Phillips, I'm sorry, she's not here yet. If she appears, just interrupt me.
That's fine. I'll keep a watch out for her.
Okay, thank you. Couple other events, old business. We're making a little bit of headway here. I'll just share once again. We are doing outreach via the Sierra Club. I think Christine Feely, who is actually leading that effort. That effort is to let the residents of West Hartford know about the energy plan. James Capella is like Catherine, sideswiped by sports, but he did give us a report that he is working on an EV event. Bear with me 1 second here. He's working with Stephanie Bahramian from Bloomfield and Steve Mitchell from the Mitchell Auto Group to do an in-person auto event. The date has been set for June 20th from 12 to 4. And it will be in the town hall parking lot, right where the EV charging stations are. There's 2 stations out there. So I think there's a lot of things to nail down. I think we have to nail down how many cars. I think we have to make sure we have the insurance. And then once we're a little bit more nailed down than we are now, it will be all about us on the Clean Energy Commission trying to get some publicity so we get some folks to take advantage of this event. So we're making headway on that. This next issue, oh, is that Catherine? Catherine, you've appeared. Great.
Yes,
You-
I'm here. Sorry
Hi,
for the
Catherine.
late arrival.
No, I told people of your athletic prowess, you and Mr. Capella. Actually, you appeared right on the sustainable CT agenda item, but since Mr. Phillips is here, I basically held him off until you got here. So let me stop sharing and ask Mr. Phillips to give us an update on solid waste management in West Hartford and what. It's not our turf per se, but solid waste often is energy intensive, and so we have always had an interest in this particular subject. And I think if we can work together on some of these issues, it might be beneficial for both of us.
Well, thank you, Bernard. I appreciate it. I'm also joined tonight here with tonight's recycling coordinator, Catherine Bruns. She's joining us. Most of you may have known her. I think she participates with your committee quite often. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody. Obviously, anybody wants to hear my spiel about trash and where we're doing, I'm interested in talking about it because, like you guys, struggle with getting the word out and just getting the right information. And really just talking about the stuff, the things we deal with in waste management, materials management, in a very factual way is our best approach, although it's a very tall mountain that we're climbing. I thought I would just start off, just in case anybody's not familiar, whether you're new to the community, new to this committee, and I'll just kind of like give us, in the spirit of Biden's speech tonight, the State of the Union of our waste management system. Overall, we're holding our own as a municipality. We're offering several levels of service. Obviously, we collect our trash weekly in the green carts. We collect recycling bi-weekly in the blue carts. And in 2019, we started a seasonal, April all the way through December, if you include the LEAF program, a yard waste collection program. We have a working recycling center down at Brixton Street, and every year we see more and more participation as far as buying permits. I'll get to the reason for the permits in a second. The recycling center offers several opportunities to divert materials that we don't want to see at the curb in our green carts. We participate in a lot of product stewardship programs, which are free to the town to participate in, and obviously free to residents to move those materials in the right locations, keep them in the streams they need to be in so they get handled properly. And those are things like your electronic waste, mattresses, paints. We have a metal bin down at that facility to accept small metals and such. We take overflow recycling materials, your 1 through 7s, plastics, cardboards, papers. That's very popular, especially this time of year. If again, now that we're going to be hopefully we're post the pandemic, people will come and dispose of extra recyclables after a picnic, right? They'll generate a lot on a picnic and they'll use facilities. Certainly through the holidays, they use those dumpsters for the extra cardboard and stuff. So that facility is open to the residents. We do charge a very small, minor administrative fee, $10 for a car. It can run up as high as $25 for a truck, because you can also bring your yard waste for free and tip it there. And a truck can tend to bring a lot more volume of yard waste than a typical car. So we do have a little price variation. The fee is just strictly for administrative purposes to make sure it's just residents using the facility. The cost to administer the program, I like to refer to as our club fee. But once you become a club member, everything inside the gate, if you will, is free to the resident. There's no other additional upcharge, if you would, on any material that we collect there. Again, if I mentioned, we also take textiles down there. But we also take textiles at the curb. It's a company called Simply Recycling. They do a modest job. They do struggle sometimes with collection. Again, it's a performance issue. But I think in general, they're completing their mission as intended. It's a free service to the town, where Public Works does not have a pay to collect contract with them. We just offer them the opportunity to use our curb line to set a pink bag of textiles and shoes and stuff to be collected on a bi-weekly basis. That's collected the same day as your recycling day. So in general, we offer, I think, everything we possibly can of material that can be collected reasonably away from the green cart, our waste. We have good numbers on recycling. We tend to float, and Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, in the upper 20s, in high 20 percentile for our recycling rate. That's come down a little bit because of, I think personally, bringing on Catherine as our recycling coordinator, so we have more education. The state launched a program called What's In, What's Out. So it might have cleaned up a lot of the material that didn't belong there in the first place. So reasonably, we probably saw a little bit of a reduction on that volume. But it didn't translate in a massive increase in our waste. What we did see as an increase in our waste is obviously the pandemic. Most of our waste, though, was spread out amongst where we work, where we go out to dinner, things like that, places we frequent throughout a day or throughout the week and weekend. All that trace became centralized at our homes of what we generated. So we did see about a 19% increase in our waste, and that has not gone down. Even though kind of life is kind of moving again and we seem to be getting out a little bit more, we still see an uptick in our waste, and we're flat in all the other areas. Our yard waste problem is extremely popular. A lot of residents continue to buy the barrels. Every time we buy 1,000 barrels, the barrels sell out. And so that's a good thing. I think people just see their neighbors buying. Hey, would you get that? Word of mouth is spreading the word on that. It's been well received by them, by the residents themselves purchasing it. That way, Public Works didn't have to lobby for the capital investment, which would have been $1 million. The carts cost about $55 a piece, and we would need 21,000 to offer a cart for every resident. So certainly a considerable cost for us. So it's a smart move for the council to adopt a plan to just push that cost on the residents and let it be a participation type program. So that's it overall. Again, I think that's what we offer as a service. I think we have a good contract with Covanta. It's reasonable for right now. We did renew with Covanta for the next 3 years, so we have a location to bring our trash for the next 3 calendar years. But our cost to dispose is going up July 1st. We've got about a 19% increase. We're going to go from $76 per ton on today's tip fees to $92 a ton on July 1st. So a very significant increase. It's a discussion I've been having with the town since 2017 when I first started introducing the crisis, if you would, or the challenges of waste management, and that the town needed to start considering other options and solutions to manage our waste materials. But we are in a good, solid contract for the time being with Covanta. It's been a good contract with them. We've been with them since 2012. They receive our waste. We don't have any issues. Lines for our hauler are manageable. Sometimes they get a little out of control with volumes, and then when the region goes there, and we'll get diverted to a transfer station in South Windsor, but that's at no additional cost to our program. So we're pretty happy with our relationship with Covanta Energy. For those who don't know who Covanta Energy is, they are a waste to energy incinerator. They receive trash. I think they're in the 200,000 ton capacity range per year annually. They grind it up and burn it and create energy and sell that energy to the market, back to the grid. And then the residue is disposed of in ash landfills located in Franklin, Connecticut, and then they go as far away as Massachusetts for some other ash landfills. So the state of garbage overall in the state of Connecticut, I guess I'll touch on. If you didn't know, the state of Connecticut has no active municipal solid waste landfills. We haven't had active municipal solid landfills for some time now, probably better part of 10 years. There's still a bulky waste. There are a couple of bulky waste material landfills, one being in Manchester, where they can take certain types of trash, but more in the area of bulky materials, larger materials, undisposable, unburnable type C&D products, things like that, but they do not accept municipal solid waste. And I believe the landfill in Putnam, Franklin area can also take some levels of bulky waste, hard to dispose of material, but no municipal solid waste. We are 100% dependent on trash to energy facilities or sending our waste out of state. Speaking of sending our waste out of state, obviously the greater Northeast, you can even include Eastern Pennsylvania, New York State, this corridor in the Northeast, we all have a deficit of having active MSW landfills. Those that are still active are starting to circle the wagon, so to speak, and really only let their in-state waste generators use the facility because their goal is to be sustainable and have a place to bring their own waste in state for a longer period of time than bringing in out-of-state waste, taking away that capacity and reducing the amount of years that landfill would be in service. Specifically, Rhode Island has completely closed their landfills to any out-of-state waste. I think Massachusetts is close to doing that, and most of New York state landfills are also doing that as well. So it becomes difficult for us as a state. We're reliant on Western Pennsylvania, Eastern, Southern Ohio, and down into the Southern Carolina areas to bring our waste when we ship it out of state. There may be some small pocket, market-based stuff that still goes on in New England, but the vast majority of our waste is really going that far away if our waste to energy plants cannot handle it in the current time that we're in now. You want to project out 1 year from now, it is the expectation of MIRA, which is the trash authority in the central part of the state. They handle 1/3 of the state's solid waste. They anticipate closing in June of 2022. They plan to maintain their contracts that they have with local municipalities and honor those contracts through 2027. And after 2027, it's really a large question mark whether MIRA would even exist any longer in the state of Connecticut. What they'll do with the trash from 2022 to 2027, that 5-year time period, for those municipalities that bring their waste to MIRA, they will have to transfer that waste out of state to those locations I mentioned in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and the Carolinas. It will not be inexpensive. The trash will be handled multiple times. You'll have it on truck, you'll have it on rail, you'll have it back on truck until the waste finally gets to a destination. Early estimates on that cost see waste costing those folks that belong to that to the MIRA program north of $140 to $150 a ton to dispose of their waste. So it will be a considerable expense, but what I fear here in West Hartford is when our contracts expire with Covanta, MIRA will be setting the market, and that market will be in that 140, 150 range. So I don't see what would stop a private entity, Covanta, to just meet the market and charge waste based on what the market will bear. And if the market's bearing that, that's a real fear of mine. It's something I did speak about in 2017, and it looks like the pathway is coming together that way. I was at a recent Hartford Trash Coalition meeting. I was asked to attend and be a part of that committee, kind of look at our waste management issues on a regional basis. At that meeting, the CEO of MIRA did announce that still reiterated the closure in June of 2022, but they also expressed that their interest, or probably the plan, would be to turn over the facility to the city of Hartford, which is an expectation of the city of Hartford and the current political makeup of Hartford. They want that South Meadows area back for development, and I think they're starting to make plans now to close the MIRA facility, and they don't even plan on transferring waste out of there. They'll transfer it out of their contracts somewhere else other than Hartford, and they'll turn that property over to the city of Hartford for future long-term development plans in South Hartford area. I can't blame Hartford for wanting it. It is an attractive piece of property. It's and it probably could be in a very attractive location for development, locating on the river there. So I certainly can't, denounce their wishes to do that. But obviously, it puts a tremendous strain on the entire state when that facility does handle 1/3 of the state's waste. One of the reasons why Covanta is closing is they were unable to garner any political support, financial support, and quite frankly, even from their own members, municipal support to recapitalize that plant. Obviously, the price tag was about $330 million to rebuild it, recapitalize it. And even with that plan, it wasn't going to recapitalize or rebuild it with any kind of anything really super innovative. The next generation, if you would, of waste management, whether it be, burning energies or any other kind of technology, it was really just going to revamp the burners, revamp the process, and hopefully they can get another 20, 25 years out of that rebuild. And that plan was not well received at every level. So that's really one of the reasons why you're seeing them sunset their contracts and start pulling out of the market for that purpose. So again, back to us a little bit. We're okay for the next 3 years. I have a great relationship with Covanta. I'm going to keep massaging that relationship, and hopefully we'll still continue to have a relationship beyond our 3-year contract. Albeit it'll probably be year over year will be more and more expensive to get rid of the end waste, municipal solid waste. Plans of what we plan to do for the future. What is our approach? Well, right now the approach is really just continue what we're doing with a strong education effort led by Catherine Bruns. She's come on strong at the very beginning of the pandemic. We've always had a recycling coordinator. Officially, it was me or it was another colleague of mine within the department, but we just didn't have the brain pan or the bandwidth to push out and really focus on the education. So I was fortunate last budget cycle, the council to approve a part-time position and to able to bring Catherine on board. She has been excellent at getting content out, talking about the issues, and really, in a lot of cases, when you're dealing with waste management, Bernie, you talked about seeing folks still putting out the wrong materials, having that one-on-one connection with our residents when we find a problem and an issue with a barrel that has materials that just don't belong there. And so I think that's going a long way. There's still a lot more to do when you're dealing with 21,000 households that we collect waste from. So it's going to take a long time to overcome those hurdles, but I think we're making great strides in that. And we're certainly not guilty of not educating our residents on what needs to happen. The information's there if they want to look for it, and we're certainly doing our best to reach everybody the best we can. As far as anything goes with pay-as-you-throw or unit-based pricing, I certainly, I took the bold move many years ago to start this community conversation. I think the community conversation, I think that period of time in 2017 accomplished the one thing. We're still talking about it today, which is good. We're still talking about the issues. We're still, we may not have been able to take any action, but at least we're talking about it and growing and understanding that the issues aren't going away. We can't wish them away. They're here to stay, and they're only going to get worse. The council's certainly more astute on these issues than they ever were. So I'm again, small progress, small successes, but I'm happy where we're headed as far as the discussions go. Certainly not happy with any kind of action. Again, I took the real bold move in June of 2018 and made a formal recommendation with a full report from Public Works, issued it to the council. Again, it was, to be honest, politically too hot, and the council didn't take action on it, but the information was there and they have it. And so they know what the solutions are. It's just, on a political will kind of discussion, there just isn't the political will to move and take action on it. And so, but I still believe in unit-based pricing. I've matured a little bit, as far as the word SMART, save money, reduce your trash. That still exists, but it's all about optics when you read that acronym and understand what it really means. Obviously, our residents took a real offense to the word savings, or at least they applied it, meaning I was going to come up with a plan to put money back in their pocket. And I believe we had somebody, one of the commissioners mention it today. Economic or environmental sensitive and environmental programs doesn't necessarily mean money back in your pocket. These programs do cost money, but there's a long-term fiscal savings. There's a long-term environmental savings, long-term resource savings, if you would, that unit-based pricing would accomplish. So I see the word savings very different than what our residents. So I've kind of relaxed a little bit on stressing savings which I did back in 17. I also said, though, those savings would be reinvested in other programs that were necessary for proper material management handling. But again, it was our residents that heard that only wanted to hear lower taxes, money back in my pocket if you're going to charge me for waste. And obviously, Public Works alone could not accomplish that. But I still believe in unit-based pricing. I'm more focused on using those terms than saying SMART and saving money, because the reality is, on a fiscal accountability basis, there won't be a savings for an individual resident. In some form or fashion, there will probably be a small, I do think it will be small, probably an additional expense to proper environmental waste management, because I can't control continuation of our taxes from other departments and what the overall general government needs are. So still putting on that, and so that's still out there. West Hartford was very, very active in the Connecticut's Coalition of Sustainable Material Management, CCSMM, under Katie Dykes, the Commissioner Katie Dykes' leadership. She organized this committee. It ran through the entire fall, concluded in January. I thought it was an excellent attempt of, again, continuing to move the dial and talk about the issues in a very broad and open manner. I believe, Catherine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think over 80 municipalities participated in those discussions. Again, we had to meet virtually, but they were well attended. There were lively discussions. I think they were informative on many levels. The main pillars, again, Catherine, jump me if I miss a pillar. Obviously, we talked about unit-based pricing. That was a pillar of the commission. Food waste management, food scrap management was a pillar. Additional recycling resources was a pillar. And Catherine, what was one of the fourth pillars?
EPR, Extended Producer
That's right.
Responsibility.
EPR, which is a product stewardship or pushing responsibility back to the manufacturers and get the manufacturers more involved in helping municipalities at the end, because we bear the cost of everything we purchase, and we're buying it from General Mills and all these major manufacturers, really to push legislation to get them to participate in the use of their materials that they that we buy from them. So again, successful. I think a lot of programs have good energy to continue to move forward and develop greater programs. Unit-based pricing did fall short. Actually, the House Speaker was public about saying that they weren't going to take on any legislation to force unit-based pricing across the board in the state of Connecticut. They felt that they didn't want to get involved in forcing more mandates. You know, I don't know if it surely would have been a mandate, but it's one of those areas where, you know, I think it was necessary personally, because I think it needs a top-down approach from, you know, the higher levels of government to start insisting on program change, especially when you're talking about something so transformational as we're talking about for waste management. And it's not unlike what the state of Connecticut did in the late 80s when they mandated that we all close our landfills and go to waste to energy. And that's what happened. And that's why waste to energy became successful. That's why you had private industry come in and build and create these plants throughout the state. You have them in Pomfret, Connecticut, Bristol, obviously the one in Hartford. You have one in Bridgeport. Those plants were built because of that state mandate. So there was you know, I think the state has a role here once again, to help municipalities get through it, because on an individual municipal basis, unless we somehow regionalize and get together with New Britain and Wethersfield, other communities who have similar services that West Hartford does, and do it together, it's going to be very difficult politically for one town to say, hey, we'll do it. And we'll be the trendsetters, and you can franchise off our success. I just don't see that pathway yet. I think we'll eventually have to get there, but as of right now, I don't see it get there. But from a public works standpoint, or as your director, I still feel unit-based pricing is in our future and is probably necessary to move the dial and achieve what we need to achieve, both in a waste reduction as well as move the dial in all our environmental concerns of waste. Last thing I want to touch on is our recycling center. I am in negotiations currently with a vendor who answered an RFQ that we set out, and the RFQ led to our RFP process. And so we're just going, and the RFQ was really to modernize our recycling center, rebrand it, if you would, calling it a material solution center. And from a resident standpoint, one of our pillars of this RFQ was to make sure that we have offered services to our residents, that we could get rid of all of our materials that are somewhat within our lifestyles, our home life that we generate at home, and have a place to bring it other than the curb. So the things that can't go in your cart, you know, in the MSW, where kind of will complement if we ever go to a unit-based pricing. We would take everything that is that has a waste stream other than municipal solid waste. So we would take bulky waste. We would collect hazardous materials regularly instead of the 7 times a year when we participate with the MDC. We would take tires. Not that tires are a big problem, but we'd have a waste stream for all those materials that could be generated at the residential level at this facility, and it would be called a material solution center. We didn't want to get involved with municipal solid waste, because municipal solid waste, I think, is handled very, very well at the curb, in the cart, and it goes away once a week. So we didn't want to get into those kind of permitting issues and those, the inherent challenges that come when you start handling municipal solid waste at a local facility. So we wanted to stay away from that. The other pillar is obviously Public Works needs more property, if you would, to do our day-to-day business outside of trash and the current footprint of the facility that the Supreme Forest takes up for yard waste management. I needed some of that property back so we can do some initiatives that I feel Public Works maintenance needs to grow. Plus, we did take down the incinerator, so the footprint's even bigger. And so I just want to re-jockey the opportunity there. So those are the 2 main pillars. A sidebar pillar is I like to see less processing of leaves and composting our leaves at site. I'd rather it just be a transfer center. So when the leaves and all the yard waste material that we bring in now gets transferred out and processed at other locations. Ideally, Supreme has a state-of-the-art processing center in Southington. They can process the materials that we generate here in West Hartford at a far greater efficiency and a higher quality in Southington than they can on the footprint in West Hartford. So I'm hoping that this will generate those opportunities, and that's how I'll leverage getting some property back to West Hartford. Now, the partnership to deliver those pillars to West Hartford, this company looks to do something in the area of food waste management in a facility building, and do something with C&D, construction demolition, which is a real problem in the state of Connecticut. I mean, 100% of our C&D waste has to leave the state to be processed properly. So this company is looking to handle those two waste streams. DEP is interested in the project. Again, this is still concept. So we're still developing the final proposals of what it will look like, and we're working through that. But we are making progress to the point where we actually have an off-the-record meeting with DEP next Tuesday to discuss the concepts of this proposal. So I know DEP is definitely interested in it. To go a little deeper on what I'm talking about for food waste processing, it'll be a transfer station. We won't be processing it to any kind of energy or anything like that. There isn't the infrastructure and the footprint that would not allow for that, but it would allow for food waste to come in, be handled, maybe created into a low solid, and then brought to anaerobic digestion facilities that are currently in operation in the state and may be coming online in the future years as the feedstock, the stock itself of food waste, becomes more readily available. These kinds of satellite locations outside of the AD plants themselves could potentially create more synergy to get your restaurants, your local grocery stores to bring their food waste a little bit closer, because of our location to, call it the Berlin Turnpike, right? Downtown Hartford, Southern Hartford, Weathersfield, certainly West Hartford's a mecca of grocery stores and other food generators like restaurants, and obviously our residents. It could create that opportunity to get more people involved and see an easier pathway, if you would, through transfer than versus direct hauling to the AD plant, which right now is probably undersized to take that much volume from delivery trucks on a regular basis. So this could serve as a satellite to those operations. And so we're excited about building on the concept and hopefully soon bringing a more formal program forward to the council to adopt and create this partnership between West Hartford Public Works and this provider. So I said a lot. I personally think it's an exciting time to really deal with these issues, both on an economic front as well as the environmental front, or what waste means to our environmental issues. So I'll open it to the floor for questions. Again, I know I just said a lot.
John, you did say a lot, and thank you. Commissioners and public on the line, any questions? If you don't ask questions, I have a bunch, so that's a threat.
A couple questions here. Since the anaerobic digestion plant is owned by Supreme Forest Products down in Southington, you know, are we looking at maybe putting a food collection somehow at Brixton Street so they can ship it down to their facility, do some sort of a collection with the restaurants in town or whatever, and the schools? I don't know what I know the tipping fees are. I don't know what the tipping fees are there versus the regular trash plant is that we're sending everything to.
Yes, Stephen. Yes, I've got a really good relationship with Brian Paganelli, who's the Vice President of Operations of Quantum Biopower. They are part of these discussions, and we are talking just what you mentioned about, you know, what are those opportunities if we can realize this opportunity here in West Hartford. What are those resources? What are the logistics we need to start pulling that waste away from the restaurants, the stores, even our residents? Even if we just start off simply as a self drop-off center, In terms of tip fees, the tip fee right now for food scraps, depending on its quality, can run from the low 40s to the high 50s. So the more contaminants, obviously on the higher end. If you're just dumping a pure food waste, there's no contaminants whatsoever, they do charge a little bit less. But on average, they're in the mid 50s for a tip fee versus what we'll be paying in July, $92. And then obviously we have escalators in years to come on that cost.
All right,
And
so
food waste by our waste characteristic is about 30% of our waste. So it's a significant amount. And I've always said if we're going to achieve our goals of diversion, food and organic materials have to be dealt with first and foremost.
so the way I'm looking at things a little bit, beyond the schools that create a lot of food waste that the town controls, is, I'm assuming the restaurants are all paying privately for their waste removal, so that's not a cost to the town.
Correct.
So how do we potentially, you're saying, okay, 30%. So some of that comes from the schools and some of it comes from the residential houses. I'm not quite sure how to gather this stuff from the residential houses, if it's even possible, or we even have the infrastructure to do that collection. But at the schools could probably be a significant savings to the town, handling that part.
Well, Stephen, for everybody's knowledge, we do collect our schools. Obviously, the pandemic was a setback for us. We were making great strides and great advancements in all of our schools, but with the pandemic and the shutdown, obviously the program's kind of stalled a little bit. So when schools get back up and running, we've got to get our energy back going again and get them back up and running. But I think we're in good position to be pulling out. But obviously the goal is all the food, but certainly get to all the schools and get the food waste separated. Here's the catch with it though. The cost of transportation will always absorb whatever you save in tip fees. And that's one of the greatest challenges on any waste stream that you source, separate out, and then deliver to its rightful place for handling, proper handling. It's the transportation costs that you cannot get around. So it's the collection, the transportation to whatever the end location is. Those costs will always absorb whatever you save from what you are source separating at our schools or anywhere else. So it is difficult. It's not impossible. We did it. We had a nice pilot program here in West Hartford. Obviously, it was all willing heart participants, so they were eager to participate, and our numbers were good. We averaged about 11 to 12 pounds per household. We did it from August to January, so we saw seasons, hot, cooler months, and then we saw freezing months, and we handled it. I think we handled it quite well. So logistically, we understand what it'll take. That collection point, we think we're going to be around between $2 to $3 per household to collect it, which math, run that all the way out, you're looking at about $700,000-800,000 for a residential collection route. So again, not impossible, just we have to grow there. We have to slowly continue to educate and get people to understand about the long-term benefits, savings on the environment, savings on infrastructure, and versus literally not really having so much dollar and cent savings in your pocket. It'd be more of social programs than fiscal programs.
Yeah, I do think that we need to figure out how it will relate back into dollars and cents. I think that could help motivate a lot of people.
The big platinum savings is if you can master food waste collection at the residential level, you can definitely move your waste to a bi-weekly collection. And so those savings would offset each other. What you save on collecting garbage, which is weekly, transfers to your collection on waste, on your food waste. There's where you have a more of an equal scale, if you would. But we're a long way away from going to a bi-weekly garbage collection.
What are you talking about? Having like a different barrel at your house to put your food waste into?
Yeah, right. You'd have a different barrel at your house for food waste, and you would change your garbage because again, the smell of your garbage is now it's your food waste. That's what's breaking down. Your normal household waste isn't really creating that odor. You can move your garbage to a bi-weekly collection.
We should definitely have bi-weekly garbage.
Some people are able to do that right now, but I think as a generality, we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, we separate we have Blue Earth compost, which I know a lot of people can't afford or whatever, but yeah, our garbage, we put it out. Well, I don't even put my garbage out every week. I put it out every other week. And I only do that because we have a cat. We have a lot of cat litter, which I don't know what to do with cat litter.
Yeah, I agree. I had to pay to get a second recycling bin because that was the problem, because it doesn't get picked up every week. But the garbage is never even half full.
I think, unfortunately, maybe what we need is $140 tipping fee, and then, Stephen, I think the dollars and cents will just smack us in the face. I hate to say that, but
Bernie, it's coming.
it's coming, yeah, and I guess
That's
until
what it
hits
is,
us,
Bernie.
yeah,
It's gonna take that money. You know, not to get too political, but I just find it with the plant in Hartford, it's a disgrace that place fell apart financially. It got too political with a lot of political appointees in there who have no idea what they're doing, making a mess of this thing, and going back to when they lost millions and millions of dollars with Enron years ago. It's a shame that this thing is going down, and that every private business that has one of these same things going, they're all doing just fine, but the one controlled by the state in the city is falling apart and shutting down. And I think in the future we just need to be leery when the politics and the appointees that they put in there to run these big businesses who have no idea what they're doing drive it into the ground. And I think we just need to be conscious about that going forward with stuff like this. It's just thing can't get going or get private funding in there to get it going again. I'm sure the 330 million that they wanted, I'm sure private business could get in there for 150 million and do it. But
yeah, we could. I'm sure we could talk all night. I just throw one last issue maybe on the table, which is in the environmental community. There is real division. I don't know what the odds are, 50-50 or 70-30. A lot of people who really argue against burning trash. They really argue that basically their mantra would be zero waste. So just purge the stream. I don't know how to do that. Certainly, if I could make that happen, I would go to that camp. But I just don't. I wonder, Catherine and John, if you see any pathway other than and a secondary question to that is they talk about dioxin and NOx and SOx and other pollutants. I've toured the Bristol plant and was told that they, between their scrubbers and bag houses and other environmental factors, that they far exceed federal regulation. But I don't know if you have any comment on that sort of division.
You're right. There is a movement. It's gaining traction, and rightly so. I'm absolutely not going to argue of the movement. As they coined their movement as the environmental justice. Obviously, they've got good science behind them, and they look at environmental justice issues, basically where these plants are located, the smog and the emissions that they push off. Most of them are located near cities, things like that, and there's obviously higher levels of adolescent asthma, asthma in general, I would assume. And that is one of Hartford's positions why they don't want the plant there any longer. The alternative is obviously landfilling. I think, in modern days, landfill is certainly engineered much differently. They're able to capture the methane gases better than ever before. And before I got to the town, I worked with landfills, capping them and drilling for the methane gas, and the methodologies have changed tremendously in just 25 years. But as from an EPA standpoint, whether you trusted the science, what they push out, waste to energy plants are still a better option than landfilling overall. Again, but overall, there are groups out there that will argue that statement. I'm just citing EPA's sheet and their hierarchy, if you will, of waste disposal. But I guess at the end of the day, both options aren't the greatest. Zero waste, if we can accomplish it, is probably the way to go. But I'm not I'm not there yet that I think we can get to zero waste. I think it's a very difficult pathway. Your bigger metropolitan areas, Boston, New York, Baltimore, Bethesda area are all developing these big grand zero waste plans that try to achieve it outward 2035, 2040, 2050. They're developing that road there. But even those roadmaps that they have created are already hitting early hurdles. And obviously the early hurdles is unit-based pricing, forcing people to look differently at their trash, forcing certain materials from one waste stream to a proper waste stream. And so it's a slow go to really get traction on those reports. But even still, I think at the end of the day, there'll be some sort of trash. The city of San Francisco has been doing it the longest. I think close to 20 years. They've been talking about, I think they're the ones that coined the phrase zero waste initiatives. And even 20 years in, they're not there yet. They still have a long way to go. They've made some great strides, but they've got a long way to go to getting to actual zero. Like I said, so I question whether you can actually get to zero. So you'll always need some form of that waste to energy, if that's what it is, years down the road, or some form of landfilling, because there'll always be a material as long as we keep producing it till our chemists grow up and find other ways to make products that we all want. I still see us stuck in this area of probably just focusing on proper material management before other real innovative and scientific solutions come online.
Right. John and Catherine, it's a difficult subject, and if I take away any comfort, I believe that if anybody can help us, it's the two of you. So, and we'd like to work with
You have
you.
high hopes.
Well, one of the big pieces of that pillar, I was muted, sorry, was that EPR piece, which was one of the 4 CCSMM discussions all fall. And, that's more on a macro level. And there's a federal bill, the Break Free from Plastic bill, because when John talks about all this material, here we, the taxpayers in municipalities, are bearing the brunt of conversations like this and budgets. When every year, 3,000 new different kinds of packaging are developed by the Nestle's and the Coca-Colas, with the guilt being pushed on us as municipalities and garbage producers, when really we often don't have a choice. It's very, very hard to be a zero waste shopper. Even the best intended people have produce more plastic than they wish. So that's the conversation on the bigger level, and for bills to go through for manufacturers of the products to be more responsible, so that these conversations, to go around in circles if they keep pushing products. So there's a packaging EPR. Jen Heaton-Jones in the Housatonic area was really big on pushing a cylinders EPR, gas cylinders and smoke detector, and they want to have tires come on board as well. Those are big problems for us. So that's a big piece of it, is it coming in, stopping it upstream. We are all talking about what happens, downstream,
Right.
but how do we stop it upstream? And that's part of what I'm trying to do, is behavior change, which is difficult.
So it's so
Bernie.
important.
Bernie, can I ask one more question before we lose John, which I thought this group might be interested in? John, you mentioned some of the changes that might be happening at the Department of Public Works at Brixton Street, in terms of a transfer station and potentially, hold on, I'm getting some feedback, so I'm gonna mute. So, I guess you mentioned DEEP, and I don't know what their involvement is. Maybe it's just in terms of permitting, or whether they're an active participant in that project with funding and things like that. Anyway, I'm wondering, as we look at potentially doing some minor or major redevelopment to that site. If deep is apartment, maybe they would bring funding, and I don't know what kind of buildings or infrastructure are required, but are we looking at ways to incorporate renewable energy, electrification, microgrids, storage, energy storage, anything down near that public works facility? There are also some private land, vacant lots down there. I don't know if we're in conversations with any partners, but just wanted to kind of throw that out there because I think this group would be also interested in kind of what is physically happening on the ground in West Hartford.
Okay, great, Kristen, great question. Well, on the ground, remember, it's a landfill first. It's a closed capped landfill, so it's very difficult to engineer and build on it. So we got very limited area where you can actually put any structure on it. And right now we're focusing on where the incinerator used to sit. That's probably the most buildable parcel, and it's about 2 acres of area that's the most buildable. The rest of it would be very difficult to build on because it is a closed landfill. I'll give you a little history lesson. It started as a full waste MSW landfill in the 30s. When they built the incinerator in the 50s, they started topping that garbage with ash. So it was an ash landfill until the early 70s when DEP and EPA shut down the incinerator due to technical difficulties. They weren't able to reduce the waste enough, and there were some other environmental issues that were they couldn't comply. So the incinerator itself, from a West Hartford investment, had less than a 20-year lifespan before it shut down and was decommissioned. And then that's when we started hauling our own trash to other locations throughout the state, and then we joined the Waste to Energy in 1984. So again, for the vast majority of the 11 acres I'm talking about is landfill and becomes very difficult. I certainly we need the space for operations, like when we take in the yard waste. So there won't be much opportunity in the way of any kind of photovoltaic farms in this area on town property. However, the building in concept, the developers are talking about a state of the art. Obviously, they're in the energy business. They want to understand and be energy storage. So we'll do everything we can from a building standpoint, utilizing the roof. We talked about canopies over the dumpsters and the residential drop-off. That would all be opportunities for photovoltaic solar. But again, that's what we're talking about on the solar. We wouldn't produce anything as far as energy. It would strictly be just a place for transfer. Materials would come in. Deep is interested in the site because we're strategically located off highway. There isn't a lot of not my backyard issues or challenges there, although a lot of people in Elmwood, once they find out the program, may have issues with it if they don't understand what we're trying to achieve. It's already permitted to handle waste from a zoning perspective, so we're not changing use. We're just really modernizing its use for where waste is today. The other properties that are around there that are private and vacant, again, it's industrial zoned. I don't know if again, the private sector will drive whether it's more advantageous to put up something energy and passive versus something back into whatever manufacturers or some sort of whatever industry needs to move in there. But Catherine's right. There are some vacant properties down in that general area. The biggest one
has the concept of a public-private microgrid ever came up between some of this industry, which might need to operate 24/7, and our critical facilities?
It has not. It has not. And when we pitched the RFQ, we asked for anybody innovative in waste management, conversion. We kind of painted the picture, and we sent it out to anybody that I knew of that would be interested in this. And we didn't get a lot of recipients. And again, partly because people trying to shy away from building on a closed landfill. The permitting and the opening up a landfill to put pillars in. Again, that little history lesson, the salt barn that we have down there, if those of you frequent down, it's right along Brixton Street. That's actually sitting on a 90-foot pillars to reach bedrock because of that whole site being a closed landfill. So, it's a very difficult site to build big structure on.
How much is the issue that it's a closed landfill versus the whole area all clay bed everywhere. I mean, they had to go down like 90 feet
combination, yes.
for 616 New Park Avenue to get bedrock to go 4
Right.
stories. The whole area is just clay.
Well, it's a landfill because they mined all the clay out to make cane bricks, right, back in the 30s, right? That's why it was used as a hole, and then they just filled it with garbage in the 30s. So that you're exactly right. You're point on. You're right there.
Yeah, not to press the point, but if the covered landfill is not going to be used for a structure, you can look at the Mount Trashmore in Hartford, which is also a capped and closed landfill, and I'm sure you know they basically ballast the ground mount solar, so they don't drive pillars in. They just weight it down.
Yeah, they're called floating footings. Again, the challenge I have there from an operation standpoint, we need that square foot of that acreage for operations.
Okay,
Public
if
works
you're going to use it
operations.
otherwise, yeah.
And as you see it now, I mean, again, I intend to shrink the footprint that Supreme is using, but there's a huge market for that material that gets brought there in West Hartford. That woody waste, chunky waste, wood debris. We lost Yukon. Yukon's now private. If we're ever to have a large storm again, I need that footprint for emergency management. So it'll be very difficult to fill too much of that area. Like I said, so we'll look to go on top of whatever new structures we build and what we're capable of building to take advantage of any opportunities there for energy efficiencies.
Yeah, and certainly the idea of canopies, whether over parking or over dumpsters and recycle bins, is something that we're pretty keen on as well.
Yep.
Well, thank you. And actually, the next agenda item is really sustainability. So that is the intersection of the clean energy and the materials waste. So please, if you have the stamina, stay on.
I'll probably hang on for a little while longer. I enjoy this group, but thank you for having me, everybody, tonight. And you can always reach out to me at John P. at westhartfordct.gov. I'm happy to take any questions you may have throughout anything public works related.
That's a great offer. I hope you mean it, because you're going to get some.
I absolutely mean it.
No problem. We understand. So Bernie asked me just to touch on the Sustainable Connecticut application, which some of you guys might know is due at the end of August. The town is looking to recertify under Sustainable Connecticut's voluntary municipal certification program at the silver level, which means you can see a spreadsheet on the screen in front of you, which has about 300 actions which any town can choose to implement for point credit. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a column. Can you guys see my screen and see where my cursor is pointing now?
Yep.
Okay. So every action on this spreadsheet has a point value associated it. And for silver certification, we need to implement actions that total 400 points. We also need to implement actions in each one of 13 categories. Hold on, Phillips, all. So here are the 13 categories. And we need to implement one action at least in every one of these categories. And we need to implement 3 equity actions, which is this first category, number 1. Let me move this little thing up here. And over on this right-hand column, this is kind of like the master spreadsheet where we keep track of all the Sustainable Connecticut actions. Over on this right side, we've added some columns, which shows in this column here what we got credit for in 2018 when we earned bronze certification, and what we're striving for in 2021 for gold certification, for silver certification. And as you can see right here, we have the potential, we've kind of assessed that we might be able to get over 500 points. We need 400, but you'll see where some of these points are distributed. Now, embedded in this spreadsheet are some actions that relate to this commission and energy. So Bernie asked me just to take a quick go through and list some of the actions that related to the commission and what you guys might be helping document with. So I'm going to do that very quickly, and we can talk about it at future meetings. But one of the actions that we could potentially get points for, now some of these are further along than others right now, but again, think we have till the end of August to do that, and some of these actions are not that hard to implement and then document. So one of the actions that I identified is this action 2.6, which is related to the CPACE, Clean Energy Property or Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's for commercial businesses to implement clean energy or energy efficiency projects and finance those using a property assessment. So we already passed the resolution that pertains to 2.6.1, but one of the things we could do, quite easy to do, is 2.6.2, which is do some outreach on the CPACE program and document that we did it. We don't have to do this. I don't think I was counting on this, this action. I'm not counting on it, but if anyone feels very excited about the CPACE program, that is one that would pair nicely with the mission of this commission. So we can think about that either in our business outreach or our clean energy campaign outreach. We might want to also do some outreach on the CPACE program. Any questions on that one? I'm going to scroll right down here. You can see some of these are category 3, which relate more to watershed, water energy efficiency, development actions. These are different categories that are not directly related to this commission. But if I scroll all the way down, again, I told you this list is 300 actions long. When we get down into category 6, which is clean and diverse transportation choices, when we come down to action 6.4.1, which is sponsor or host a zero emission vehicle promotional event or educational workshop with a community partner or third party. So this we have done already, and James is working on another one. So you can only get credit for one of these events under this category. You can't count 2. And if we take credit for something in a different action, we can't get credit for it in 2 places. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the 2 things I have identified for this one is we did host, in conjunction with Live Green Connecticut, Daphne Dixon's group, we had an electric school bus visit the town hall lot. The assistant superintendent of schools, the finance director, Bob Palmer from facilities, a bunch of staff, as well as a bunch of residents and community members and other town officials visited that day to and I think some of you guys, I know Bernie was on the bus, Henry Millward was on the bus to see the electric school bus. So that event would qualify, and I think whatever James is working on for the EV event would also qualify. So the next step with something like that is James or I or one of you, we would need to gather the details on that event. And then the Sustainable Connecticut program, and on its website, there is very explicit instructions on what you need to document to submit for this action. So we'll cover that later, but I'm just pointing out what the actions are. So 6.4.1 is one. When we get down into category number 7, this is about renewable and energy efficient infrastructure and operations. This is a big one, but most of the actions, you would actually think this is a big one for the commission. Most of the actions under here, we are going to submit for a bunch of them, but I think it's really on me, and a lot of it, the documentation is done already. So a lot of this is tracking our municipal energy use, our data on use and savings, and reporting that through Energy Star Portfolio Manager in a report format put forward by Sustainable Connecticut. So we will be submitting for 7.1.1 track municipal energy use, but that's really on me to document, not on the commission. 7.1.2 wastewater treatment plant energy use doesn't apply to us. We will be submitting for 7.2.1, which is reducing your energy use across buildings, and that's a calculation. We will also be submitting, again, 7.2.b, anything related to wastewater treatment plants doesn't apply to us. So that one doesn't apply. 7.3.1, which is high performance buildings, schools or any municipal buildings that achieve a score of 75 or above in the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. We do have several schools that are above a 75. I don't think we're going to be submitting for this action because I think the deadline for Energy Star certification has passed for this year. And some of our schools, which were previously above a 75, portfolio manager kind of recalibrated their scores. And so some of our schools have fallen off. But I think we do have at least 3 or 4 schools that do have a score of 75 or above. And then again, but that would be on more on me than on the commission to document. 7.3.2, which is achieve LEED Silver or higher. We do have one building, Charter Oak School, which is LEED Silver. So this would be really just refreshing the documentation for this action, which is kind of on me to do. Any questions so far?
No.
7.4.1 is also more portfolio manager stuff. This year, Sustainable Connecticut is asking people to document any renewable energy use in portfolio manager as well. So that's really on me. We kind of had to work with the system a little bit to incorporate virtual net metering and our annual rec purchase into the portfolio manager, because portfolio manager is really a tool for tracking building use. So we kind of had to figure out how we could get that that renewable energy to be reflected. But I worked with the people behind the scenes, and we'll be good to go there. When we get to the next action, which is develop a municipal energy plan, 7.5. This one does come back to the commission. Develop an energy plan that includes energy tracking. We have 7.5.1, the municipal plan, and you need to develop the plan and then have it formally adopted. So the commission is working on this. I do think adoption in other towns, the adoption just by the commission has been enough to be accepted by Sustainable Connecticut, but we are hoping to get our plan adopted by the town council by August. So there are 2 parts to this. One is the municipal energy plan. 7.5.2 is the broader residential and business plan. Our plan is combined, so we would submit the single plan to count for these 2 actions. So we will need some assistance from the commission or certain members to maybe create the documentation for this, or I can do it on my own. And then another one that would apply is, depending on what we do over the next few months or what we've done in the past few years. A lot of these actions have very specific, what they call look back periods. So you can claim credit for things that have happened up to 3 years ago. So if you have not claimed credit for them before, that's key. So 7.7.1 here is implement a community energy campaign. So some of the heat smart things that Bernie's working on, or any campaigns that we have done recently, would qualify under this action and need to be documented. And again, we can talk about that documentation piece at future meetings or on the side. I just want to point out some of the actions that apply to the commission's work. Okay, so this is identify the audience, design the campaign, carry out the campaign. Okay, so you have to do all three. Then we are scrolling down further to 8.1. This is hold a sustainability event. So again, if we haven't claimed credit for one of our energy related events in the actions above, we can claim credit for it here. But these sustainability events are not just energy related. It could be some of the recycling talks that Catherine has given at the libraries. It can be something like they're having, I think, the Poet Laureate event at Westmore Park, open to the public. There's a lot of different events, cleanup days, park walks, any community open events, the bike rodeos they used to hold, they all fit in here, and you can get credit for up to, what it is it over here, hold more than 10 sustainability events and you earn 15 points. So there's a spreadsheet where you put all these events in. So I would want your assistance just kind of brainstorming. We have started to identify some of these events right here. As you can see, yoga in the park, picnic on the farm, all these different things. We just, so we can kind of brainstorm what we can contribute to that action. And then scrolling further down, there is one, which I think we can either credit for somewhere in the town. We'll be able to submit for collaborate with other municipalities, whether it's especially implementing a sustainable action in partnership with some neighboring towns. I know we've been working with Bloomfield on some certain things, and I'm sure whether it's energy related or something else, I know that Todd has been collaborating on some zoning issues and stuff associated with what are those, accessory dwelling units and things like that. So we'll find an action that would qualify under that. So I think that about gives it the flavor. Oh, one I missed. It's somewhere up here. There is an action on dark night skies. And I don't know whether we want to get involved with that, but I did have a conversation with Todd Dumais that he thinks the time is right to kind of solidify the town's position on dark night skies. And that might be a collaborative exercise between our commission, the Conservation Environment Commission, and Planning and Zoning, even if it's just to lend support for a policy that's drafted. I forget that must be up under 4 or something. There's something under the development or the planning and zoning. Is that about right?
This is great, Catherine. Thank you. Can you, given the way we operate, could we get you to essentially tell us what to do?
Yes, we will formulate a plan. I will compile this into a written list and maybe identify some people who I think might be the point people for some of these actions. And then the next steps, as I mentioned, there are very explicit directions on the Sustainable Connecticut website about how to document these actions. So I will provide links to that and follow up with individuals, or we can tap other individuals to work on documenting those actions.
Great. Yeah, I know there's more than 3 months on the calendar, but there's vacations and there's life and there's pandemics and
Yep.
and nothing goes according to plan. So sooner is better.
Well, and we do also at some point, again, although it also has been a little bit delayed, we will have the new Sustainable Advisory Group forming, Sustainability Advisory Group under the town, and one of their major roles is to assist in this process too. So some of our commissioners might work jointly with some of those people on some of these actions, maybe just feeding our energy information pieces to them, and they can do the actual documentation. I'm not sure exactly how that'll work out, but we may have, more than one person assigned to an action. And
Great.
you can great.
Catherine, we have about only 6 minutes left before it's 9 o'clock and the president comes on.
My apologies.
That's okay, Jen, thanks. So as I was saying, no word on the Chevy Bolt grant that we submitted for the CMAQ program. I'll let you know when I hear anything. That would be really cool to get 2 Chevy Bolts into our fleet. Again, the town does not have an electric vehicle yet. We do have 2 hybrids in the police cruisers, and we do have a electric mower, I think it is. Okay.
Electric
Yep.
riding.
Yep.
Hey, Catherine,
And
there's some grants out there with the USDA for upgrading diesel trucks for the use of biodiesel with it. I don't know if you see any of those or seen any of those or interested in it. I can send over.
Yeah, that's something that we should share with John. If he's on or if he's gone, we'll forward it over. I don't usually get involved in that because that is public works equipment. John has, I know, I don't know about bio grants to convert to biodiesel, but yeah, I'd be happy to send those on to him. So send me a link and we'll share it with John, or you can share it directly.
Okay, I'll send it over to you.
And then just quickly, I wanted to share these little, that's not it. Can you see?
Yep.
Yes. There we are.
There we go.
These are kind of some updates on the school side and then the town side of our recent electricity and gas and water use. So we are under budget significantly. As you can see this year, we did budget fiscal 21 as a normal operations year. And so some of that reduction in use is still COVID related, although we are running our buildings on significantly increased ventilation schedules. You can see our electricity use is down. The gray line is this year. Our natural gas use has climbed significantly in the winter. Again, that's due to increased ventilation for longer hours and even setting the buildings back. Kind of, we are still heating long after we need to. So that's that. Water use was very high last summer and fall. You can see the gray line is significantly higher. It was very dry in the fall, but I do think that's an area we can take another look into. I think some of our irrigation systems are quite old and not functioning correctly. I remember someone on this commission told me they saw us irrigating somewhere. I think it was King Philip Middle School when it was raining. That's not good. Yes, so we've also had much lower than anticipated utility rates. Some of that on the electric side has been that our demand for electricity went down significantly during COVID. And so our any rates that were tied to our peak demand have dropped over time. So we've been able to see some savings there, as well as some new supply contracts that kicked in that were slightly lower than our previous ones. Natural gas also wasn't as high as anticipated, although, and water rates this year haven't gone up as significantly as they have in previous years. So we were kind of, those rate decreases and some of the use decreases have kept us under budget. On the town side, we're still under budget as well, and our use is slightly lower than anticipated. But, you know, a lot of the town buildings are critical facilities and were not very affected by COVID. You can see the gray line again, lower, but not significantly lower than in previous years. So we did, the water use is slightly lower because we did not open some of our, several of our parks and pools this year. But that's about it. So on the town side, you know, a lot of things you think of, police, street lights, traffic lights, were completely unaffected by COVID. Any questions? These were attached to the agenda, so you guys can kind of peruse them at your.
Oh, good. I was going to say they move pretty quick, so I would like to spend a little slow time with them. But yeah. I think this is good reporting, and I'm glad this is part of the agenda. Okay. Well, this was a great meeting. Let me say, so we are going to talk a little bit about biodiesel next time, and a little bit on the TCI. You know, it's a state initiative, but as it bears on the town, I think it's worth talking about. And commissioners and public, if agenda items enter your mind, by all means, send them to Catherine and myself or James Capella. And I guess at this point, at 9:03, I'd like to get a motion to conclude the meeting.
Second.
I think Joe gave us the royal wave. So. Okay. There you go. Well, thank you all, and everybody should go watch The President now, and have a good night and be safe.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Stephen.